The galaxy was full of life. Over 100 alien species lived among the stars. They had fast ships, clean cities, and rules for everything. There were councils, laws, and peace treaties. It was a place where everything seemed calm. But one thing was clear. Humans were not welcome. They called Earth a death world. Too violent. Too dangerous. They said humans were too emotional, too loud, too quick to fight. So the Galactic Council kept Earth at a distance. No help. No trade. No voice. Most humans didn't care. Earth had its own problems. Its own wars. Its own wonders. But then, something happened. A message. A scream. It came from the edge of known space. From a small colony called Virex 7. The message was simple. It repeated again and again. This is Virex 7. We are under attack. Please help us. Please, someone, anyone. The message ran for hours. Then days. Then weeks. Billions of beings heard it. The signal passed through every major system. Every government. Every station. And everyone ignored it. Too far. Too small. Not profitable. Too dangerous. The enemy was unknown. No one wanted to be the first to fight something new. So they stayed silent. Except one person. His name was Yuri Volkov, a retired satellite technician living in Siberia. He spent his days listening to space signals on old equipment. One night, while drinking tea and watching the snow fall, he heard the call. He didn't understand the language at first. But he understood fear. The voice sounded tired. Broken. Real. Yuri recorded the message and posted it online. It spread. At first, people thought it was fake. Then scientists confirmed it: real location, real frequency, real people. The news exploded. People on Earth watched the videos. They saw fires. Smoke. Screaming. Mothers holding their children. Soldiers trying to fight something they couldn't stop. The Galactic Council still did nothing. But humans couldn't look away. Some got angry. Others cried. But many asked the same question. Why is no one helping them? Governments argued. The UN met for emergency talks. They debated risks, costs, politics. Meanwhile, people acted. Veterans signed up. Engineers offered their ships. Doctors packed their bags. Civilians sold their homes to fund fuel and gear. Earth didn't send an army. It sent volunteers. No fancy ships. No alien tech. Just repurposed cargo freighters, old fighters, and a lot of duct tape. They called themselves the Phoenix Corps. Not official. Not recognized. But ready. Some called them foolish. Others called them heroes. The launch was broadcast live. Families waved goodbye. Children held signs. The ships rose into the black sky, heading into the unknown. No one knew what waited on Virex 7. Only that someone had to go. Far across the stars, on Virex 7, things were getting worse. The invaders weren't machines. They weren't robots. They were alive. They looked like floating bone and muscle, shaped like blades and mouths. Fast. Silent. Smart. The Virex weapons didn't work. The walls fell. One city after another was swallowed. Refugees hid in mountains and tunnels. Their leaders tried to contact the council again. Still no answer. Until the sky burned. Bright trails appeared above the planet. Hundreds of human ships entered orbit. One by one, they broke atmosphere and landed. The Virex didn't know what to expect. What they saw were humans in mismatched armor. Some had painted flags on their chests. Others had photos of loved ones stuck to their helmets. They looked rough, dirty, tired. But they looked ready. The first battle began 14 hours after landing. A group of human volunteers set up defenses near a broken Virex shelter. The invaders came fast. But the humans didn't run. They held the line with old rifles, flame weapons, even explosives made from fertilizer and oil. They fought hard. They fought dirty. And they won. Not because they were stronger, but because they refused to give up. The Virex watched in shock. These humans didn't come for money or fame. They came because someone needed help. And in that moment, the galaxy changed. The battles on Virex 7 were not easy. The human volunteers had won their first fight, but the war had just begun. The alien invaders, called the Mobi survivors, were unlike anything the humans had faced before. They didn't talk. They didn't show fear. They just moved like shadows and struck without warning. They were living weapons. Fast, silent, deadly. And worst of all, they learned. After each fight, they changed. They got faster. Smarter. Harder to kill. The Phoenix Corps had to adapt fast. They shared every bit of data they could. No generals. No long meetings. Just people making decisions on the ground, in the heat of battle. A former firefighter named Rosa Alvarez built traps using fuel lines and scrap metal. A mechanic from Nigeria, Ibrahim, created drones from mining equipment. A teenager from New Delhi, Karen, flew supply runs through dangerous weather because no one else would. These were not soldiers. They were builders. Farmers. Truck drivers. But they stood between the Ma and total extinction. And they held the line. High above the planet, the Galactic Council watched. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The humans were untrained. Poorly armed. Outnumbered. And yet, they kept winning. One council member, a tall insectoid named Scarrow, said, "This behavior is illogical. They are dying for strangers." Another answered, "They are not like us. They are something else." Some council members feared what this meant. Others felt ashamed. But none were ready to act. So, the humans kept fighting. Alone. On the surface, the Virex people slowly started to hope again. At first, they stayed hidden. They watched from the shadows, waiting for the humans to fail. But they didn't fail. They dug in. They cleared cities. They built safe zones. They brought food, water, and medicine. They protected everyone they could. One day, a Virex child ran up to a human soldier named Mason. She handed him a small crystal, her favorite toy. "Why?" Mason asked. The child looked up and said, "Because you stayed." It was a small moment. But it meant everything. The Virex began to fight beside the humans. They brought maps. Tools. Old weapons. The two species, so different, now stood together. For the first time, the war felt winnable. But the Ma noticed. They began targeting human camps directly. Night raids. Traps. Ambushes. In one attack, a forward base was destroyed. Over 120 humans died. A live feed broadcast the attack across Earth. The world watched in silence as medics pulled bodies from burning ruins. People mourned. And then, more people volunteered. Back on Earth, the story of Virex 7 spread like fire. News channels showed heroism. Social media exploded with videos, letters, and messages from the front lines. A baker in Italy sent fresh-baked survival bread sealed in cans. A class of children in South Korea raised money to send power cells. Musicians, artists, even prisoners all contributed something. Earth was changing. Not because the war was on their doorstep, but because they had decided it mattered. The Galactic Council couldn't ignore it anymore. They sent observers. Quiet drones. Spy ships. What they saw shocked them: humans holding broken buildings together with metal bars and sweat. Medics treating alien wounds like they were family. Fighters singing while they marched toward impossible odds. One council member said, "They are not fighting like warriors. They are fighting like it's personal." Another replied, "Maybe it is." Weeks passed. The humans, with Virec's support, pushed the Maw back. Not far. But enough. They created a green zone, a safe area where children could sleep without fear. It wasn't perfect. It was made of tents, scrap, and hope. But it was safe. In one corner of the zone, someone planted a Terran flag and a Virec's banner side by side. A simple sign hung under them. It said, "Here, we don't care where you're from. Only that you fight for what's right." It became the symbol of the resistance. But the war was far from over. In deep space, something was moving. Something bigger than before. A new kind of Maw ship. Faster. Stronger. Smarter. The next attack wouldn't be a raid. It would be a test. And humanity would face its darkest hour yet. For a while, it looked like the humans might win. They had created a safe zone on Virek 7. They built strong walls. They fixed old machines. They worked side by side with the Virek's people. Children played again. People laughed again. But the war wasn't over. Not even close. One night, just before dawn, the sky turned red. Sirens screamed. Radar screens flashed. The humans looked up and saw something they had never seen before. A new Maw ship. It was huge, 10 times bigger than the last. Not made of metal, but of bone, flesh, and something dark that moved like smoke. It didn't fly like normal ships. It crawled through the sky. And it brought death. The first blast hit the outer wall of the green zone. It wasn't a laser. It wasn't fire. It was pure pressure, a wave that crushed everything in its path. Watchtowers fell. Barracks broke apart. People ran. Screamed. Fought. The Maw poured in, hundreds of them. Some crawled. Some flew. Others just screamed and exploded when they touched anything alive. The humans were outnumbered. Outgunned. Surprised. But they didn't run. Rosa Alvarez, the former firefighter, grabbed a flame unit and ran straight into the attack. She lit the front line on fire, slowing the Maw's advance. Ibrahim, the mechanic, climbed a broken tower with a rocket launcher made from mining parts. He fired every round, even as the tower shook under him. Karen, the young pilot, refused to leave the civilians. He flew his old shuttle through fire and smoke, pulling people out 3 at a time. They didn't fight like trained soldiers. They fought like monsters, wild, angry, fearless. Because they had something the Maw would never understand: a reason to live, and a reason to die. Inside the command tent, Commander Elena Cho watched the monitors. She was calm, but her hands shook. She knew this attack could end everything. She called all units. "This is not a battle. This is the moment. We hold. Or we lose." Her voice spread across the zone. Everyone heard it. Everyone understood. There was no backup. No cavalry. Only them. The Virek civilians picked up weapons. Even the children helped, carrying water, ammo, messages. One boy ran back and forth through falling rubble to lead people to shelter. He was 10. The humans didn't stop him. They knew he wanted to help. And in that moment, he was one of them. Hours passed. The Maw didn't stop. But the humans didn't break. They fought with everything. Drones. Shotguns. Homemade bombs. Some used metal pipes. Others just used their fists. A Maw creature charged a medical tent. A nurse unarmed threw herself in front of it, screaming. The creature hesitated. And in that split second, a sniper took it down. Courage was the human's secret weapon. By the time night fell again, the battle was over. The new Maw ship was gone, damaged, maybe dead. Its body burned in the sky like a second sun. Over 300 people died. But the zone held. In the days that followed, something strange happened. Council drones flew lower than ever before. They didn't hide. They wanted to see. They recorded everything. Not just the battles, but the faces. Faces covered in sweat. In blood. In tears. But never in fear. An alien news network shared a clip of the fight. The video showed a human soldier standing alone, covered in dust, breathing heavy. Around him, bodies of Maw creatures lay still. A child clings to his leg. The caption read, "This is a Deathworlder. He fought for people who are not his own." It went viral. In hours, billions watched it across the galaxy. Some cried. Others were silent. But almost everyone thought the same thing. Why did we ignore the call? The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Some argued that humans were still too dangerous. But others said, maybe danger is what we needed. They voted. For the first time in history, Earth received an invitation. But Earth didn't answer right away. Commander Cho replied with only one message. "We're still busy. We'll call you when it's done." And then, they went back to work. Because the war wasn't won yet. And humanity had no interest in applause. Only in finishing what they started. The battle was over. The green zone still stood. Broken, burned, but alive. Smoke rose from the ruins. Bodies were counted. Names were written. And for the first time in weeks, the sun over Virex 7 rose without the sound of gunfire. People cried. Not because they were scared. But because they had survived. Commander Elena Cho walked through the camp with her helmet off. Dirt covered her face. Her eyes were red. She stopped to thank every medic, every guard, every child who carried supplies. One Virex elder, old and blind, held her hand and said, "You have shown us what we forgot, what it means to stand for others." Elena didn't answer. She only nodded and moved on. There was still work to do. Far above the planet, the Galactic Council met in silence. They had watched everything. The battle. The bravery. The blood. And they had come to a decision. Earth would receive full recognition. A seat at the table. Access to trade routes. Technology. Protection. Respect. The vote was passed. A message was sent to Earth's temporary ambassador on Mars. "Welcome, humanity. The Council is ready to receive you." The reply came hours later. Short. Sharp. Human. "We didn't do this for a seat. We did it because no one else would." The Council didn't know what to say. They were used to deals. To rules. To slow action. But humans didn't follow those rules. They rewrote them. On Virex 7, the survivors began to rebuild. Humans and Virex worked side by side. Language didn't matter. Skin, shape, species, it didn't matter. What mattered was action. What mattered was trust. A young girl named Sarah, only 8 years old, followed the humans everywhere. She drew their faces with crayons on broken walls. One soldier asked, "Why do you draw us?" She answered, "So no one forgets who showed up." Her drawings became famous across the galaxy. They were simple. Rough. But real. One showed a human soldier giving food to an alien child. Another showed a nurse holding hands with a Virex elder. The most famous one was titled, "The Ones Who Stayed." Meanwhile, Earth changed. People no longer looked up at the stars with fear or envy. They looked with purpose. The people who had stayed on Earth were not quiet. They organized supply drops, sent messages, wrote songs, poems, stories. The world came alive. Not in war but in solidarity. The council offered gifts. Clean energy. Faster ships. Longer life. But Earth was careful. They didn't want favors. They wanted respect. One human diplomat said, "If you want to help us now, help the ones still being ignored." The next Virex. The next call no one answers. The council hesitated. Then slowly they agreed. Humanity had become something new. Not just a species from a death world, but a reminder that civilization is not clean streets or quiet meetings. It's not soft voices or long treaties. It's standing in fire for someone else. It's holding the line when no one else will. It's giving your life not for glory but because it's the right thing to do. A reporter from the council once asked Commander Cho, "Why do you think humans are so dangerous?" She laughed. Just a little. Then she said, "Because we care. And when we care, we don't stop." Virex 7 became a symbol. Not just of war, but of change. Where before there was silence, now there was movement. Other planets in danger began to speak up. And when they did, the first signal that reached them was always the same. A message from Earth. "We heard you. We're coming." Peace never lasts long. 2 months after the last Ma ship fell, Virex 7 was still rebuilding. The skies were quiet. The safe zones had power. Children played without fear. But deep in space, something moved. A strange signal reached the edge of the human network. It wasn't like the others. It wasn't a scream for help. It wasn't a military transmission. It was one word. Repeated, over and over. Observe. No one knew where it came from. No origin. No direction. Just, there. At first, people ignored it. Then more signals came. Faster. Louder. Each one clearer. Observe. Learn. Adapt. The humans recognized it. It was the Ma. And they were speaking. Commander Cho stood over the message logs. Her team decoded the signals. The Ma weren't just animals. Not mindless. Not random. They were learning. Not from humans. About humans. They had watched Earth's response. Studied every battle. Every tactic. Every weakness. And now, they were preparing something new. Something bigger. In a secure council chamber, diplomats argued. We cannot fight another wave. Earth must stand down. If we provoke them. Provoke. They attacked Virex. Human representatives sat quietly. Listening. Until one stood up and said. We already answered the call once. We're ready to do it again. Silence. The message was clear. Earth wasn't backing down. Back on Virex 7, the volunteers prepared again. They didn't ask for orders. They packed their gear. Repaired their armor. Sharpened their tools. Not because they wanted war. But because they wanted peace and knew what it took to protect it. Elena Cho spoke to her team one last time before the next deployment. This time, they know who we are. They've seen what we can do. But so what? We've seen what we are. We've seen what it means to stand. To protect. To show up. So let them observe. Let them learn. We're not going anywhere. But then something happened no one expected. A second signal came. Different. It wasn't from the Ma. It was from a small planet in another system. A voice. Weak. Static. This is Tau 9. We are under attack, please, if anyone can hear us. The same words from Virex 7. Same pain. Same fear. Earth didn't wait. No meetings. No votes. Within hours, ships launched. Not just from Earth but from Virex 7 too. The Virex people, now free, joined the mission. They flew side by side with the same humans who had once saved them. This time, they answered the call together. The council watched. They had talked about unity for centuries. But humanity had done it in months. Not with politics. With action. As the joint fleet left orbit, a reporter asked a simple question. Why do you keep going? A pilot smiled and answered. Because someone has to. And now it's not just us. They disappeared into the stars. No one knew what they'd find. But it didn't matter. They were no longer just humans. They were protectors. Responders. The ones who show up. Years later, a statue stood on Virex 7. It showed a human and a Virex standing side by side. Behind them, a crowd of different species. The plaque said, "For those who answered the call. And for those who will." Children from every race came to see it. Teachers told the story. Not of war. But of courage. Of choice. Because in the end, it wasn't about strength or power. It was about showing up when no one else would. We were never the most advanced. Never the strongest. We came from a death world scarred, loud, wild. But when the galaxy cried for help, we didn't look away. We answered. And maybe, that's what makes us human.